Yahoo Fantasy Auto Racing Week 21 in the Tucson Racing League. Pocono Raceway was the site of Sunday's Sunoco Red Cross Pennsylvania 500. Greg Biffle, your winner in the event. Tony Stewart, Carl Edwards, Kevin Harvick, and Denny Hamlin rounded out the top 5 when all was said and done. In the NASCAR Sprint Cup points race, Kevin Harvick holds a 189-point lead over Jeff Gordon, with Denny Hamlin 260 points out in third. We also got to start looking at the battle for 12th. The top 12 teams in NASCAR make the race to the chase, or I'm sorry, the actual chase, I guess is what they call it. Greg Biffle sits 11th in the standings, 122 points up on 13th right now. So looking pretty good right now, pretty solidly in the top 12 right now. 5 races remain before that cutoff, though, and 12th place could not be closer. Clint Boyer just 34 points ahead of Mark Martin for that final playoff spot. And then Dale Earnhardt Jr. sits 14th, 129 points out of the playoff picture. Let's take a look at some of the race notes, though, from this weekend's race at the triangle-shaped Pocono Raceway. Tony Stewart started on the pole for the event, led a few of the early laps of the race before Jeff Gordon and Jimmy Johnson showed their dominance over the rest of the field. These two were the class of the field, put quite a bit of distance on the rest of the field once they were able to get up front. Bouncing back from a very disappointing week last week at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, these two teams were definitely the teams to beat this week. Racing the rain would wind up being what would define this event. After the halfway point, of course, if it rains, the race can be called and made official. So, from about the halfway point on, the racing could not have been more competitive, more compelling. Lots of battles all over the racetrack. I do want to commend ESPN for doing an excellent job of bringing you the action on the racetrack. If there was a battle on the track, they were showing it to you, and that was a refreshing surprise compared to the coverage that Fox and TNT seem to put on every week. But aside from that, the race was actually very competitive, very entertaining, very interesting. Strategy to go along with the rain wound up being very important to the outcome of the race. A lot of people wanted to be up front in case the rain broke out so they could steal a top 10, top 15 finish, even if they didn't have maybe a top 10 or top 15 car, while some of the leaders had dominant vehicles and just needed track position to prove it, and when they would get bogged back in traffic, it wound up making things very difficult for them, and too much ground needed to be made up for a lot of those drivers. Greg Biffle was the king of strategy this week. He used 2-tire pit stops to take the lead coming off of pit road multiple times, including the last set of stops where he wound up coming out second on the racetrack behind Sam Hornish, who actually did not pit with 23 laps to go, hoping to steal a win when the rains came. But unfortunately, the rains lifted, and Hornish wound up dropping back to 11th when all was said and done. Still the best of all the C drivers. Greg Biffle was able to get the lead, dominated from that point on. The only other note here, Jimmy Johnson actually wrecked Kurt Busch prior to some of the rains coming, about 3/4 of the way through the race. Johnson admitted fault in the accident. Kurt Busch was not a happy camper, but probably more notably, Elliott Sadler was spun out by his own teammate who did not see the wreck. Sadler went spinning through the infield and pancaked a wall that jettisoned out from the infield, ripped the entire engine out from the vehicle as is in one whole piece. Sadler was visibly shaken up and struggled to catch his breath after the accident and laid down next to his vehicle waiting for the safety crews to get to him. Very scary scene, one of the hardest wrecks I've ever seen. Just goes to show how dangerous Pocono is and how not up to code the racetrack is compared to everywhere else on the circuit. But let's talk fantasy racing. Let's talk the Tucson Racing League, the Tucson Racing Group. The winner this week, Lightning McQueen. McQueen had 329 points, a very good week for that team for their 3rd win of the season, and most importantly, made up a lot of ground, or I shouldn't say a lot, but made up some ground on the league leader, Highwide and Handsome. McQueen had all 4 drivers in the top 15, throw in a 3-point bonus from Denny Hamlin. Started 2nd place, Tony Stewart, had 8th Jeff Burton, 11th Sam Hornish out of Group C, the big surprise, and Clint Boyer, who probably would have had a top 10, but fell to 15th with all the strategy that played out at the end. Second this week was High, Wide, and Handsome. Tried to do some damage control this week and avoid losing too much ground to McQueen Wound up second place this week with 311 points, 18 out of first place. Tony Stewart was second out of Group A for high wide. Jeff Burton 8th, Paul Menard 13th, and David Rudiman 17th, throwing a 3-point bonus for Denny Hamlin. Third this week was the Wall Always Wins with 241 points. Big gap, 70 points separated second and third. The Wall was 88 points out of first this week, but still got third. Only one driver, though, in the top 15. That was Denny Hamlin, finishing 5th. Opted to go with Hamlin instead of Stewart. Stewart picked up a 10-point bonus for qualifying, but Stewart wound up second, whereas Hamlin wound up 5th. So probably not the best decision there. The rest of the squad for the Wall, very disappointing. Casey Kane 19th, Joey Logano 25th, and Scott Speed in 26th. Fourth this week was Greek Thunder with 226 points, 103 out of first place. Had 8th place Jeff Burton and 13th place Paul Menard. The next two drivers, though, finished outside the top 20. Kyle Busch in 23rd and Dale Earnhardt Jr., very disappointing, in 27th. Rounding out the top 5 this week, Hulk Smash with 223 points. Missed out on 4th by just 3 points. 106 points, though, out of first this week. Only one driver in the top 18. That was Jeff Gordon in 6th. Then had Casey Kane for 19th, Scott Speed for 26th, and Dale Earnhardt Jr. for 27th. The only other team to start a full lineup this week was Team Edwards, coming home in 6th. Best driver on this team was 19th place Casey Kane, so didn't manage to get a single driver in the top 18. Wrap that up with A.J. Allmendinger 24th, Joey Logano 25th, and Kurt Busch getting wrecked and coming home 33rd. So a very disappointing week for Team Edwards. The rest of the field, oh no, a blowout, got 10 points out of qualifying from Tony Stewart. Kane Rules actually scored 3 points this week. Qualifying bonus from Denny Hamlin. And whoa, a left turn, scored nothing. In the overall standings, High, Wide, and Handsome now holds a 132-point lead over Lightning McQueen. And it's 411 back to Hulk Smash in third, who's just 41 points ahead of the Wall in a battle for third with the Wall Always Wins. Fifth right now is Team Edwards with 683 points out of first place. Only 24 points ahead of 6th place Greek Thunder, who continues to come on strong and try to get into that top 5. The rest of the field is Woe in 7th, 8th is Blowout, and 9th is Kane Rules, all well over 1,000 points out of first. Going into next week, Watkins Glen International. They're going road course racing for the second and final time this season in the hell of a good sour cream dips at the Glen. Your pool is going to lock Saturday, August 7th at 2 a.m., and starters are going to lock Sunday, August 8th at approximately 10:13 a.m. You're going to want to check the entry list posting later this week. We're going to post the entry list for the field as there's going to be more road course ringers and some lineup changes for some of those teams that are maybe looking outside the top 35 in points and trying to get a boost with a one-and-done type start situation. So definitely check that entry list to see who makes the field and who's skipping the race this weekend as we go road course racing for the final time in 2010. We'll see you next week for Week 22 in the Tucson Racing League.